Hello and welcome to Library Drawing Party. Today we're going to be making roses. In our sample, I drew some pale pink roses, but in order for everyone to see it a little bit better, I'm going to try making a darker red rose today. First thing we're going to do is we're going to draw some really light circles to place our roses. So we have one in each corner, and then you have a stem. This is just an idea of where we want things to go. We're going to actually erase these as we go along, but that way we have an approximate placement. So we're going to use our colored pencil to draw the outline of the rose, and we're going to erase the first circle. We're going to start with this rose because it's a little bit easier. And we're erasing the pencil mark so it's really faint because we don't want that color to show through, especially if you're doing the pale pink like I did here. Every single stroke that you do is going to be visible. So we want to really make sure that we make those strokes count. So the first thing I'm going to do is, you can see there's like this vase shape. So I'm going to start outlining the vase. You can also think of it as a pear shape, where it's wider at the bottom. Okay, we have our vase. Let's do the top. We have a little ruffle from the center petals. And there's a triangle petal coming out. And there's another one. Let's do this. It looks like the lapels on a tuxedo to me. So let's do that next. The petal curls out from the center. Then we have another lapel on this side. And then it curls around like a jacket. Okay, then let's go back to drawing this outer petal. So these flowers, we're doing really close up of the rose. So it's gonna go off the page. We want it to go off the page slightly. And I like having it be extending outside of the page, the flowers, because then it gives it a lot of movement across the page for the viewer. We have this petal opening up down at the bottom. It's almost like a rectangle. All right, let's do this side. There's another outer petal, and this one wraps around. This is just a loose sketch or outline. And this petal down here, part of it's getting covered by this rose, so we'll just leave that open for now. Let's start sketching this rose. So again, we're going to want to erase the circle. The circle was just to help us place where we wanted our lines to go. Okay, let's do that same vase shape. This is essentially the center of the rose. Okay. I ended up pushing it down a little bit further than my original. That's because I want the top of the rose to be aligned with this rectangular shape that we drew over here. So you can always, that's the beauty of sketching it, that you can make adjustments as you go along. Okay, so I'm going to do this center bud here. We have this strong line, and there's a line next to it, and there's a half circle around, and then a ruffle on top of the petal, and there's another half circle coming this way, and this one crosses in front. And then we have that same petal wraps around the other side. Again, crosses in front. No two roses in nature are going to be exactly the same. So our drawings, it's good if they're unique and different. So this rose is going to be a little bit closer to this one, but that's fine, because it would be different if we had two bouquets. They wouldn't be exactly the same. Alright, let's do this outer leaf now. So that's going to fill up that space that we left open before. And then this is going to wrap around down to the bottom of our vase. Let's do this outer leaf. So this one pops up from the center and goes off the page. Then we have this ruffle, which comes in front. There's like a triangle shape. And we have that ovalish shape. And down here, we have a little ruffle coming out from a circular petal. And then over here, we have a triangle shape coming out. I'm going to make this a little fatter. Pull this down a little bit. That's the beauty of working directly with the colored pencil that you're going to use for your base coat. Because as you go along, you don't have to be erasing, because that's just going to add to our base coat. Okay, let's do this bottom petal. This one is almost like a heart shape. Go ahead and erase that stem that we drew in before, so the petal is covering the stem. Okay, so we have our basic roses drawn. Let's start adding the shading, or actually let's add the base coat. So as we talked about in some of our other library drawing parties, for base coat, if you're trying to get a really light color, you can hold the pencil like this, so it's on the side. So you're only getting the side edge of the pencil. We still want to be able to see where we drew our outlines, but we want to start developing that color. If you're doing a pale pink rose like I did in the sample, you're going to want to press even lighter than I'm pressing right now. You can probably want to use a pink pencil if you have that at home, so you can get that really light color. And towards the edges, you're going to want to leave a lot of white, because that's where your highlight is, and it's really difficult to add white. once it's been colored. You want to leave as much white as possible until you're finishing up your drawing. And then if you want to add more color, you can do that then. Since I'm doing a darker rose here, I'm adding a little bit more color. This is a deeper pink. If this is your first time tuning in to our library drawing party, thank you for joining us. If you have any ideas or suggestions of things you'd like to draw, please share them in our comments. We'd be happy to take them into consideration. We have so many wonderful things in the world to draw. Nature works especially well, so if you have any nature ideas, please feel free to share them. Also, if this is your first time tuning in the library drawing party, I like to say that drawing with a colored pencil is a lot like painting. Now we put our first coat. This is when we're going to start blending our colors together. So, or actually we're going to add shading and then we're going to blend. So I'm going to put the full force of my pencil down in these sections that are very dark. So it's going to be a little bit darker for mostly the center of our rose. The light is generally coming from above, so it's catching these outer leaves. And this is why it's good to have our outlines drawn before we put most of the color down. Then we can evaluate what needs to be darker and what needs to be lighter. Okay, that seems to be our darkest sections for this rose. Let's do the darkest sections for our second rose. Now, if you're working with a number 2 pencil to create this in grayscale, you can apply all the same techniques. You put the first coat of gray, like what you would do with the pale pink rose though. I would apply a really light pressure so that when you're going in and adding this shading now, it can really pop. If you're using different materials, your blending process might be a little bit different, but I'm sure you can create wonderful things too. Crayons, markers, even highlighters, or in this case a red pen would work well. Wonderful thing about art is that you can make it your own and do what inspires you. All right, we have some dark lines down here. This ruffle underneath it has a lot of dark shadows. Add that in. Same thing underneath this ruffle. A little bit above the ruffle. front of this triangular shape has some darkness. Base of the rose, some darkness too. When we did these lines, we had to make sure that we were putting the full force of the pencil because we wanted them to be as dark as possible. But now as we're working towards our base color, we want to fade it out. So when it's close to these lines, we want to put a lot of force, not the full force, but a lot of force. And then we're going to work our way out and lighten it up as we go along. Not every part of the rose is going to have this fade out effect, but we do want to make sure for all the sections like right here that we put that in. You can try many different colors for the rose. There's light pink, dark pink, hot pink, red, dark red, even orange roses. And I'll share a link on our Facebook page for our drawing party. But there's even a language of roses. So the kind of rose that you give someone, the color actually stands for something. So you can give rose, the color of the rose can symbolize friendship, appreciation, gratitude, sympathy, romance. There's a lot that you can say just by the color of the rose. So feel free to use whatever color you're most interested in. Or if you'd like to give this to somebody, you can think about what message you'd like to send the person as you select your colors. Okay, so I started sketching my shading. Now I want to take a different red color, and this red has some brown in it. And these deeper red roses are going to have an element of brown. Think of it like a wine color. You can also try a purplish rose. So these parts that we put the full force of the pencil, that's where I'm starting with this brown. It's gonna give it a nice rich color. I don't want to do the whole rose with the brown. You can also use a light brown instead of this reddish brown. But I don't want to do the whole rose like that because then it might start to muddy the color, and we still want it to have this nice bright red or bright pink, depending on what you're using. For the pale pink rose, I use a really light pink for the base coat, and then I use a dark pink. Instead of this brown color, I use dark pink, and that worked out well. At least I think it worked out well. Okay, let's go back and do our first rose. Especially towards the center. Definitely gonna have a lot of shadows. The petals are overlapping and unfurling. You want this to be nice and dark. Okay, so we definitely have our shading going. Let's go over and do another second coat of our red. I want this to be light too. On the top portion here, we want this to be pretty light, so we want to keep this color still somewhat light. We're going to darken it up a bit. If you're using the pale pink though, you're going to really want to emphasize that white. So you don't want to press hard at all. You might even want to omit this second coat. Just evaluate it as you go along. And you're going to want to add the shading back in if it starts to get muddled. This way we'll have a nice deep color. Okay. Pretty happy with how this rose is coming out. Let me use that brownish red for the shading again. I do want to smooth it out. Keep some of the texture. But rose is a very smooth texture when you're feeling the leaves, well, the petals, not with the thorns. I really want to capture that. Sometimes it's good just to take a step back, look at what you've worked on, and make adjustments as you go. I think this bud in the center could stand for a bit more darker color. Okay, I'm pretty happy with this rose. Just want to add one bit right there. And I like the white peeping through, but I want to strategically place it. Okay, I'm pretty happy with that rose. Let me go back and add a bit more color to this one. I like how this one is a little lighter than this rose, so I'm not going to add too much color to it. If we're imagining that the light source is coming from the top, it would make sense that this rose would get more light as closer to the light source. But we do want to make sure that they look like they came from the same plant. So I want this to be able to match the darkness or the deep red that we have in this rose. Okay, I want to add a little bit more of this red. The brown, again, you can use light brown if you don't have a darkish red brown at home. You just might want to add a little bit extra red. Done. Okay, let's take a moment, look at it. Looks pretty good. Okay, so let's take this light green and erase our stems too. So just so we had an idea where we want our stems to be. I'm using a light green first. So this is our first base coat. It's a little bit thicker stem towards the rose. And we want to add a leaf by the flower. And add a leaf down here too, although I omitted it from my sample drawing. Okay, and then let's take our dark green. Again, you want the lines to be going in the direction that would naturally be occurring. So the plant would be getting water up and down, so the veins are going up and down, so we want our strokes to be vertical as well. We're going to have some thorns. It is a rose after all. Same thing for this one. Let's add our dark green to this stem. Now I want the concentration to go on the roses, so I'm going to intentionally leave the leaves a little plainer. I'm gonna actually just do, I think I'll do one leaf here. And how about another one over here? And then a big leaf this way. Again, you want your strokes, especially since we're doing this looser, you want the strokes to be going in the direction of the veins, so the flower will be going out this way. You can also have some going across. A little bit too far. That's okay, we're going to be drawing over it. Okay. In fact, let's use that to draw these leaves. And you don't have to worry about drawing over them because we're using the same color. Do a leaf this way. Have one go behind here. Let's add another stem off the page, like a real bouquet. We'll have another leaf coming off of that stem. I want this stem to be behind this leaf though. So when we draw in the stem, be conscious of the leaf, give it some thorns. As you can see, I'm changing up the leaf number of leaves, the direction they're going, as long as it looks like something that would be real and true to the roses. It doesn't really matter how many leaves you have. You can have as many or as few leaves as you think is appropriate. Okay, one last final touch. I'm adding in some gold. You can also use some yellow or that light brown that we were talking about before. This helps give some highlights. Also shows some shading. Most plants are never just truly green. They usually have some other colors in them. And also to emphasize the shading, let's use that dark green and really put the full force behind the bottom. Of the leaves. Also gives it a nice contrast. The bright pops of pink or red, or even orange that we made for our roses. And there you have it. There's our roses. Thank you for joining us for our library drawing party. We hope to see you again next week. We have library drawing parties every Wednesday at 7 p.m. And if you have any ideas or suggestions, please share them in the comments. We'd love to see your drawings. If you'd like to check out previous library drawing parties, please check out the Mercer County Library System's YouTube channel, where we have all of the library drawing parties archived. And keep being creative.